And we are following breaking news out of the city of Madison. The police department is mourning the loss of one of their own who was killed this morning in a motorcycle accident. 60-year-old Jimmy Brooks was killed after hitting a backhoe on Highway 51 at Hoy Road. He's the former police chief in Vicksburg, retiring there in 1992. Authorities say he had a combined 31 and a half years in law enforcement and had been with Madison PD for 2.5 years. Now, that accident happened around 6:45 this morning. Investigators are still working to determine how it happened. He was rushed to University Medical Center where he died from his injuries. The Madison County Sheriff's Department is conducting the investigation for MPD. Flags are flying at half-staff outside the Madison Police Department, and the chief is expected to address the media in just a few minutes. Keep it right here on News Channel 12. We'll have more for you later in this newscast. In other news today at noon, top House Democrats and Senate Republicans are meeting with the governor right now to hammer out the budget. It's your money, and you should know how it's being spent. Over the weekend, House and Senate leaders agreed on a $5.5 billion budget for 2012. Monday, Governor Haley Barbour sent lawmakers a letter saying the budget was too expensive and cuts needed to be made of nearly $60 million. Now, some lawmakers worry the governor's cuts will hurt public education, mental health, and public safety. News Channel 12's Byron Brown is live from the Sillage Building downtown. He has more on what lawmakers are working on. Byron, what have you found out?
Well, Aaron, the governor came back in town yesterday and this evening, and so the top Democrats and Republicans, they are meeting with the governor right now, and they are talking about this budget, that $5.5 billion budget you've been talking about. The governor wants that $60 million taken out. He says that's the amount that of last year's budget, $60 million over the last year's budget that he wants removed from the budget, and they're really concerned, as you mentioned, about the public education and that he wants taken out, and they say that's really going to hurt public education because over the last 3 years, House members say the public education has lost some $300 million over the last 3 years, and they really want that to stay in there because this right now will keep public education at level funding, the same funding it's had over the last couple of years. So they say if they remove that $60 million that's currently in the budget, it will really hurt K through 12. So they're going to be fighting with the governor right now, who's upstairs in his office to hammer out the budget, the differences there. And they say anything that they decide will then have to go through the full House and the Senate to decide what they'll do with the differences there. And we're going to find out what happens in this meeting when they walk out of that office. That should take about an hour to decide what they're going to do. So when they walk out, we'll tell you what the governor decided and what those top Democrats and Republicans decided about the budget, that $5.5 billion budget. So we'll have more on what's going on coming up later at 5 o'clock. Reporting live at the Sillage Building, I'm Byron Brown. Now back to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Byron. Well, this morning, Madison County supervisors voted on their new redistricting plan. They chose Plan Number 3, which changes the districts of supervisor candidates David Buchanan and Billy Redd. Now, they will attempt to move forward with the process of altering district lines before the upcoming elections. Last month, the Board of Supervisors filed a suit trying to extend the qualifying deadline for county elections while members redraw their new voting lines. The board wants the qualifying deadline extended to June 1st for candidates running in Madison County elections this year. The population in Madison County grew by some 20,000 people over the past decade, according to the 2010 census. Also for you today at noon, for the second time in recent weeks, a FedEx driver is carjacked in Jackson. 27-year-old Jeremy Watts was making a stop on Bound Street off the I-55 frontage road in northwest Jackson when he says a man jumped onto his truck. He says the man pulled a gun, told him to get out, and took off in the truck. The man was in his 20s and was wearing a green polo shirt, a green hat, and blue jeans. Now, the truck was found about 30 minutes later on Bay Street and Ridgeway Street in West Jackson. It's now at the state crime lab being combed over for fingerprints and clues that can lead to the man who stole it. Now, we're learning new details about the suspects involved in an attempted robbery at a business in Pearl. Police say the two men were dressed in drag. It all happened around 5:45 at Gold and Silver Extravaganza on Highway 80 in Pearl. Police say the men wore wigs, had on hospital scrubs, even enhanced their backsides to look more voluptuous. The owner says the two were heavily armed as well, but he was prepared. He fired at least 4 shots and hit both men. One was already dead by the time police arrived. The other was shot in the head and was rushed to UMC, where he is still this afternoon. The crime has people in Pearl shocked.
I just think it was totally brazen, totally bold of these suspects to have come in and just done something like this. There must have been some kind of deep desperation.
Now, Pearl police say at least one of the suspects tried to rob this same business 2 weeks ago and was driving the same car that was towed away from the scene last night. Officers are still working to identify both men. They say the owner is protected under the Castle Law and shot in self-defense, so he's not facing any charges. Rankin County authorities are also working to identify skeletal remains that were found. A crew working on power lines discovered them around 10 yesterday morning on Highway 49 in Florence. The grassy area is across from Jerry's Fish House. Florence's police chief tells us investigators are checking to see if any people went missing recently in that area. The investigation has now been turned over to the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation. In other news this afternoon, new legal documents filed concerning Stuart Irby. One was submitted right before his bond revocation hearing in Madison Municipal Court yesterday. The other was filed this morning, both in Hinds County Chancery Court. Now, the paperwork that was filed yesterday was on behalf of Irby, who is asking for a conservator. The documents say because of the head injury he received in a car accident in 2009, he may harm others if he's not watched. Another document was filed this morning. His mother-in-law, Gail Lang, told News Channel 12 yesterday that she was going to seek sole custody of the son he shares with his wife, Karen, who's currently serving an 18-year prison sentence. Now, 2 doctors were killed and Stewart was seriously hurt in the crash. The documents in this case are sealed, so details are not available for us. Now, Irby was placed under house arrest yesterday for violating his probation on a cyber-stalking charge. He's accused of sending inappropriate email to a 17-year-old girl. Investigators say he contacted her within 2 hours of getting out on bond March 3rd. He was also arrested in Ridgeland this past Sunday on a DUI charge. We'll have much more for you coming up today on News Channel 12 at 5.
Here's your Storm Team 12 Vipercast.
Partly sunny, warm, windy, and humid outside. Temperatures are in the upper 70s now. We will be in the mid-80s for much of the afternoon from 3 o'clock through 6 o'clock. Now, we do have a cold front which will be moving through Mississippi later this evening and overnight. No rain expected with that front, but temperatures will be cooling down overnight. You'll see a big difference by tomorrow morning. So today, with the warm, the muggy, the breezy conditions, a good day, but not a perfect day. So we're going to give it a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10 on the South Pole. A couple of nice days ahead, though, to end the work and school week. We'll talk about that and some rain coming for the weekend up in just a few minutes in the full forecast.
Screen legend Elizabeth Taylor has died. She passed away this morning at a hospital in Los Angeles. She'd been there for about 6 weeks and had congestive heart failure. It was a condition that she struggled with for many years. Though she had recently suffered a number of complications, they hoped that she would be able to return to her home soon. Taylor leaves behind 2 sons and 2 daughters. In addition to her children, she has 10 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren. Still ahead on News Channel 12 at noon, the tap water and some farm food in Japan is contaminated. The latest on what's seeping into their natural resources. But right now, it's time to head over to the Storm Team 12 Weather Lab to get the latest on the forecast from Ken.